I used to believe that if two people loved each other enough, nothing, not distance, not money problems, not even family, could tear them apart. I believed love was stronger than whispers, stronger than disapproval, stronger than blood. I was wrong. And the day I realized just how wrong I was standing in my own kitchen, holding a cracked mug, listening to my mother-in-law tell my husband that I was not the kind of woman this family keeps. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor, but neither of them noticed. Or maybe they did, and didn't care. That was the moment I understood that our separation didn't begin the day my husband packed his bags. It began long before that. It began the first day I said yes to him, without knowing that I was also marrying his entire family, and that they would never say yes to me. My name is Clara Whitcomb, and this is how my in-laws slowly, deliberately, and quietly destroyed my marriage. I met Leonard on a rainy October evening in Seattle. I remember it clearly because I had just moved there from Portland, my boxes still half unpacked, my life feeling unfinished and floating. I had ducked into a small bookstore cafe to escape the rain. Leonard was already there, sleeves rolled up, reading a dog-eared paperback and sipping coffee like he had nowhere else to be. When he looked up and smiled at me, it felt easy. Too easy. We talked for hours. About books, travel, work, childhood dreams. He told me he was a civil engineer. I told him I designed interiors for small businesses. He laughed softly, not loudly, the kind of laugh that felt private, like it was meant just for me. By the end of the night, the rain had stopped, the cafe lights were dimmed, and I knew that my life had shifted. Leonard courted me gently. No games. No pressure. He remembered small things. How I hated cinnamon. How I always got cold. How silence made me uncomfortable unless I trusted the person beside me. Within a year, we were married in a modest ceremony by the coast, waves crashing like applause behind us. His family flew in from Vancouver. That should have been my first warning. Leonard came from a family that believed in hierarchy, spoken and unspoken. His father, Garrick Whitcomb, was a retired corporate executive with a voice that never needed to rise to command a room. His mother, Maureen, wore elegance like armor. Pearls. Neutral tones. Perfect posture. She smiled the way people do when they are being polite, not kind. His older sister, Blythe, barely looked at me the entire wedding weekend. When she did, it was with eyes that assessed, measured, and dismissed. They were cordial. That's the word Leonard used. They're just reserved, he said. Once they get to know you, they'll warm up. But warmth never came. After the honeymoon, Leonard and I settled into our apartment overlooking the water. For a while, it was just us. Mornings tangled in sheets. Late dinners. Laughter. The kind of love that grows quietly but firmly. Then the calls started. His mother called daily. At first, Leonard answered happily. He put her on speaker while chopping vegetables, telling her about work, about the weather. I smiled and waved even when she couldn't see me. Then she started asking questions. What did Clara make for dinner? Is she still freelancing? Or has she found something more stable? You're not letting her work late nights, are you? They sounded harmless. Concerned. Maternal. Leonard brushed them off. I brushed them off too. I didn't want to be that wife, the one who complained about her in-laws. I wanted to be easy. Gracious. Understanding. That was my second mistake. The first real crack appeared during our first Christmas as a married couple. We flew to Vancouver to spend the holidays with his family. Their house was massive, perched on a quiet street lined with identical evergreens. Inside, everything was immaculate. Nothing out of place. Not even us. Maureen hugged Leonard tightly. She hugged me lightly, her arms barely closing around my shoulders. During dinner, she praised Leonard constantly. His career. His discipline. His good sense. When she spoke to me, it was always through him. Leonard, tell Clara that the wine glasses go on the left. Leonard, remind Clara that we wake up early in this house. I felt like a guest in my own marriage. Later that night, I overheard Blythe talking to her husband in the hallway. She's not what I imagined, she said. What did you imagine? He asked. Someone more suitable. I stood frozen behind the door, my chest tight, my hands shaking. When I told Leonard, he sighed. She didn't mean it like that, he said. She just needs time. Time. That word would haunt me. When we returned to Seattle, something had shifted. Subtle, but real. Leonard still loved me. I know that. But there was a hesitation now. A pause before he spoke. A habit of checking his phone after every call with his parents, his mood changing in ways he couldn't explain. Then Maureen started visiting. At first, it was for weekends. Then for weeks. She rearranged my kitchen without asking. Critiqued my work hours. Commented on my clothes. You don't dress like a married woman, she said once, smiling. Leonard laughed awkwardly. I laughed too, even though my face burned. One evening, after Maureen went to bed, I asked Leonard if we could set boundaries. He looked tired. Worn down. She just wants what's best for us, he said. For you, I corrected softly. He didn't respond. The real manipulation began when I didn't notice it. Maureen would pull Leonard aside for long conversations. Blythe would send him articles about successful marriages and appropriate roles. His father would ask pointed questions about finances, subtly implying that I was a risk. Slowly, Leonard started questioning things he had never questioned before. Why I didn't want children immediately. Why my income fluctuated. Why I needed so much independence. Each question felt like a small cut. Individually harmless. Together devastating. I started doubting myself. I tried harder. Cooked more. Worked less. Smiled through discomfort. I thought if I became more agreeable, more quiet, more acceptable, things would improve. They didn't. They escalated. The night everything changed, Maureen invited us to dinner. Just the three of us. She cooked Leonard's favorite meal. She lit candles. She poured wine. Then she leaned back in her chair and said calmly, Leonard, I think it's time we talked about the strain this marriage is putting on you. My heart stopped. She spoke gently. Carefully. Like a surgeon. She said I was ambitious to a fault. That I made Leonard feel small. That my upbringing didn't align with their family values. That people were talking. Leonard didn't interrupt. I looked at him, waiting, for defense, for anger, for something. He stared at his plate. That silence was louder than any insult I had ever heard. When I finally stood up, my legs felt weak. I think I'll go home, I said. Maureen nodded. That might be best. Leonard didn't stop me. That night, alone in our apartment, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't fighting my in-laws anymore. I was fighting my own husband. And I was losing. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that while I lay awake that night, questioning my worth, my loyalty, and my sanity, a decision was already being made about my marriage. A decision that would change everything. And it wouldn't be mine. The morning after that dinner, Leonard acted like nothing had happened. He kissed my forehead before leaving for work. He asked if I wanted coffee. He texted me a heart emoji at noon. If I hadn't lived inside his silence the night before, I might have believed him. But something in his eyes had shifted. It wasn't anger. It was distance. The kind that forms when someone else has started living inside your head rent-free. I spent the day pacing our apartment, replaying Maureen's words over and over. Strain. Values. People are talking. None of it felt accidental. It felt rehearsed. Like she had been preparing this speech for years, waiting for the right moment to plant doubt. That evening, Leonard came home later than usual. Traffic, he said quickly, avoiding my eyes. I nodded, though my chest tightened. He went straight to the shower. His phone buzzed on the counter while he was gone. I had never gone through his phone before. Not once. I believed trust was sacred. But that night, trust felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. I glanced at the screen. Mom. We need to move faster. She's more fragile than I thought. My hands started shaking. I didn't open the message. I didn't need to. The words were already lodged inside me like glass. The next few weeks felt like walking through fog. Leonard was still present, but only in body. His thoughts were elsewhere. He took more calls outside. He started visiting Vancouver more often, for work connections. He came back quieter every time. When I asked if everything was okay, he said yes too quickly. I began to feel like a guest in my own life. Then came the financial pressure. Leonard sat me down one evening, his voice careful, measured. Mom thinks we should consider separating our finances for a while, he said. For what reason? I asked, stunned. She just thinks it might help reduce tension. I laughed. A sharp, broken sound. Your mother thinks we should restructure our marriage. He frowned. Don't make it sound like that. But it was like that. Every suggestion came from her. Every doubt originated there. My marriage had become a group project, and I was the only one not invited to the meeting. I refused. That refusal changed everything. Maureen stopped pretending. She criticized openly now. My tone. My work. My influence over Leonard. One afternoon, while Leonard was at work, she showed up unannounced. I won't stay long, she said, stepping inside anyway. She walked around the apartment like an inspector, running her fingers along surfaces, peering into rooms. You know, she said finally, Leonard has always been sensitive. He needs stability. Structure. I give him that, I replied, my voice tight. She smiled thinly. You think you do. Then she dropped her voice. He's been seeing a counselor. At our suggestion. My stomach dropped. Without me. It's best that way, she said. He needs clarity without emotional interference. Emotional interference. That was me. When Leonard came home that night, I confronted him. He didn't deny it. They think I need space to think, he said. Who is they? I asked. He didn't answer. The real betrayal came 2 weeks later. Leonard asked me to join him for dinner at a quiet restaurant downtown. Candlelight. Soft music. The place where he had once told me he loved me for the first time. I should have known. Halfway through the meal, he cleared his throat. I've been talking to my parents, he said. And my counselor. I nodded slowly. They think a trial separation might help. The room seemed to tilt. A separation? I whispered. Just temporary, he said quickly. A few months. No pressure. Just space. Whose idea was this? I asked, though I already knew. He hesitated. Too long. I agree with them, he said finally. That sentence shattered something inside me. I felt like I was watching my life from underwater. Sounds muffled. Movements slow. What did you want? I asked. He looked at me then, really looked at me. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. I don't know anymore. That was the moment I realized Maureen had succeeded. Leonard moved out the following week. He took a suitcase. Then another. He said he'd come back for the rest later. The apartment felt hollow without him. Too quiet. Like it was holding its breath. His family framed the separation as concern. We just want him healthy, Blythe said during a tense phone call. You're overwhelming him, Maureen added in a message. You should reflect on your role, Garrick wrote in an email. I did reflect. Endlessly. I questioned every word I had ever spoken. Every choice. Every boundary. Until one night, I received an email that changed everything. It was from Leonard's counselor. Addressed to me. By mistake. I stared at the screen, my pulse roaring in my ears. The subject line read, Progress Update R. Whitcomb. My hands hovered over the mouse. Part of me wanted to close it. To preserve what little dignity I had left. But another part, the part that had been slowly suffocating for months, needed the truth. I opened it. And what I read made my blood run cold. Because the narrative being built about me, about our marriage, was not just distorted. It was deliberate. And it painted me as the villain in a story I didn't recognize. I read the email 3 times before my brain could accept the words. Not because it was long. But because it was wrong. The counselor, Dr. Lennox, had written about me like I was a case study. Cold. Controlling. Emotionally domineering. Someone who struggled with boundaries, who created an environment of pressure, who exhibited subtle manipulation. I barely recognized the woman he described. What made it worse was the source of his information. As discussed with Leonard's parents. I felt physically sick. This wasn't therapy. It was strategy. They had gone to counseling without me, framed the narrative without me, and now they were using professional language to validate their agenda. To erase me. I closed the laptop and sat on the floor for a long time, staring at the wall. I kept hearing Maureen's voice in my head. He needs clarity without emotional interference. That was never about healing. It was about control. I confronted Leonard the next day. We met at a small park near the water, the kind of place couples brought dogs and strollers. Normal lives. Happy lives. He looked thinner. Tired. His shoulders curved inward like he was shrinking. I saw the email, I said. His eyes widened. You weren't supposed to. I know, I cut in. That's the point. He swallowed hard. They were just trying to help. By rewriting our marriage. I asked. By turning me into a villain. He looked away. Do you believe that about me? I asked quietly. He hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than any insult ever could. I don't know what to believe anymore, he said. I stood up. I do, I said. I believe your family decided who I was before I ever had a chance to be known. And you let them. His voice cracked. It's not that simple. It is, I replied. You just don't want to face it. A week later, the real twist revealed itself. I got a call from Blythe. Her voice was unusually gentle. I think you should know something, she said. My heart pounded. Know what? There's been talk. About Leonard moving back permanently. About making the separation official. I thought this was temporary, I said. It was supposed to be, she replied. But plans change. I hung up shaking. That night, I drove to Vancouver without telling anyone. I needed answers. Not curated ones. Real ones. Their house looked the same as always. Perfect. Silent. Controlled. Maureen answered the door. Clara, she said, surprised but composed. This isn't a good time. I'm not here for tea, I said. I'm here for the truth. She stepped aside. Inside, Garrick sat in his chair, reading. Blythe stood near the window. Leonard wasn't there. Where is he? I asked. Maureen folded her hands. He's staying with friends. I laughed bitterly. That's a lie. Her eyes hardened. We did what we had to do, she said. By isolating him? I asked. By feeding his counselor lies. By convincing him he needs to be saved from his own wife. Garrick finally spoke. You were never suitable, he said calmly. We tried to be patient. But Leonard was changing. Becoming uncertain. Because of you, I wanted to scream. Instead, Blythe spoke. He was going to leave anyway, she said. We just made it easier. That sentence hit me like a blow. You planned this, I whispered. Maureen didn't deny it. We protected our son, she said. At my expense. I drove back to Seattle numb. 2 days later, Leonard showed up at the apartment. Unannounced. He looked panicked. Why didn't you tell me you went to Vancouver? He demanded. Because I didn't need permission to fight for my marriage, I said. They said you ambushed them, he snapped. I laughed. A hollow sound. Of course they did. Then I told him everything. The email. The lies. The planning. Blythe's confession. He sat down slowly, his face pale. They wouldn't, he started. They already did, I interrupted. And you let them. Silence stretched between us. Then he said something that broke me completely. They're offering to help me buy a house, he said softly. If I finalize the separation. I stared at him. So that's it, I said. There's a price tag on our marriage. They're just trying to help me start over, he replied. With who? I asked. He didn't answer. I didn't need him to. That night, after he left, I finally stopped blaming myself. I saw the pattern clearly now. They didn't hate me. They replaced me. With influence. With control. With obligation. I had never stood a chance. But what they didn't realize, what Leonard didn't realize, was that something inside me had shifted. I wasn't fighting to be chosen anymore. I was fighting to be free. And in the days that followed, a truth would surface, one that would force Leonard to confront the cost of choosing blood over love. A truth Maureen had buried carefully. A truth that would change the ending of this story forever. The truth came to me quietly. Not through confrontation. Not through shouting. Not through Leonard. It came through a woman I had never met. Her name was Anselma Reed, and she emailed me at 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. The subject line read, I think we need to talk about Maureen Whitcomb. I almost deleted it. By then, I was exhausted, emotionally hollowed out, surviving on muscle memory and routine. I hadn't slept properly in weeks. Every sound in the apartment reminded me of Leonard. Every silence accused me. But something made me open it. Anselma wrote carefully, like someone afraid of reopening an old wound. She explained that she had once been engaged to Leonard, years before I ever met him. That she'd found my email through an old shared document while cleaning out a cloud drive. That she had followed the separation quietly, from a distance, recognizing patterns she had once lived through herself. My breath caught in my throat. She asked if we could talk. I said yes. We met 2 days later at a cafe in Tacoma, halfway between my unraveling life and the truth I didn't yet understand. Anselma was calm. Grounded. The kind of woman who had survived something and learned how not to bleed on others afterward. I left Leonard, she said gently, stirring her tea. But I didn't leave, because I stopped loving him. I felt dizzy. Why then? I asked. She met my eyes. Because his mother made sure I never belonged. Every word that followed felt like a door opening inside me. Maureen had done the same thing to her. The same slow erosion. The same whisper campaigns. The same framing of concern as control. The same counselor. The same pressure. The same ultimatum disguised as support. She told Leonard I was emotionally unstable, Anselma said. That I would trap him. That I wasn't rooted enough. My hands were trembling. She offered him financial help if he left, she added. Just like she did with you. I swallowed hard. Did he take it? Anselma nodded. He did. And he regretted it almost immediately. The cafe felt suddenly too small. Why didn't you tell anyone? I asked. She smiled sadly. Because by the time I understood what had happened, I had already escaped. And because Maureen is very good at making women look hysterical when they tell the truth. I thought of the counselor's email. Of the rewritten narrative. Of my silence being used against me. How many others? I whispered. Anselma looked away. At least 2 that I know of. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat very still and felt something solid settle inside me. Clarity. For the first time since my marriage began to collapse, I stopped wondering what I could have done differently. Because the truth was brutal and clean. This was never about me. Leonard wasn't choosing between 2 women. He was choosing between adulthood and obedience. And he had chosen wrong. I asked Leonard to meet me one last time. Not to beg. Not to negotiate. But to tell the truth, fully, finally, without fear. We met in our old apartment. The one I had already decided to leave. He looked relieved when he saw me, like he thought this was reconciliation. I've been thinking, he said. Maybe we rushed things. Maybe. I raised my hand. No, I said. You need to listen. Just once. I told him about Anselma. I watched his face drain of color. She contacted you, he asked, stunned. Yes, I said. And she told me everything. The patterns. The manipulation. The counselor. The money. His voice shook. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She lived it, I replied. Before me. Silence. Then something in him cracked. My mother only wanted what was best, he whispered. No, I said softly. She wanted what was hers. He collapsed onto the couch, his hands covering his face. She said you were changing me, he sobbed. That you were pulling me away. I was helping you grow, I replied. And that scared her. He looked up at me, eyes red. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said. But intention doesn't erase impact. Then I told him the final truth. I'm filing for divorce. The word landed heavily between us. He reached for me. I stepped back. I loved you, I said. But I will not compete with a woman who refuses to let her son become a man. He begged. He apologized. He promised therapy, real therapy this time. But it was too late. Because love that requires self-erasure is not love. It's captivity. The divorce was quiet. Maureen didn't contact me. Neither did Blythe. Garrick sent a single email wishing me clarity in my future endeavors. I smiled when I read it. I had already found it. I moved to a smaller city. Started over. Built a life that was slower, quieter, and wholly mine. I healed in pieces. Some days were easy. Some days felt like grief had claws. But every day, I woke up without feeling watched. Without shrinking. Without apologizing for existing. Months later, Anselma and I met again, this time as friends. We laughed about how similar our stories were. How predictable Maureen's playbook had been. Do you think he'll ever break free? I asked. Anselma thought for a moment. Only if he's willing to lose her, she said. And that's a loss some men are never brave enough to survive. I don't hate my in-laws. I pity them. Because control masquerading as love eventually destroys everything it touches. And I don't hate Leonard either. But I no longer protect him from the consequences of his choices. If there is one lesson my marriage taught me, it is this. You don't just marry a person. You marry their boundaries, or the lack of them. Love cannot survive where loyalty is conditional. Marriage cannot thrive where manipulation is inherited. And no woman should ever have to disappear to make a family comfortable. I didn't lose my marriage. I escaped a legacy. And I will never again mistake endurance for devotion.